Mountain Trees by Chuang. Chuang was traveling over a mountain when he saw a huge tree well covered with foliage. A woodsman had stopped nearby, not caring to take it, and on Chuang inquiring the reason, he was told that it was of no use. "This tree," cried Chuang, "by virtue of being good for nothing succeeds in completing its allotted span." When Chuang left the mountain, he put up at the house of an old friend. The latter was delighted, and ordered a servant to kill a goose and cook it. "Which shall I kill?" inquired the servant. "The one that cackles, or the one that doesn't?" His master told him to kill the one which did not cackle, and accordingly, the next day, a disciple asking Chuang saying, "Yesterday, that tree on the mountain, because good for nothing, was to succeed in completing its allotted span. But now our host's goose, which is good for nothing, has to die. Upon which horn of the dilemma will you rest?" "I rest," replied Chuang with a smile, "halfway between the two. In that position, appearing to be what I am not, it is impossible to avoid the troubles of mortality. Though I charioted upon Tao, and floating far above mortality, this would not be so. No praise, no blame, both great and small, changing with the change of time, but ever without special effort, both above and below, making for harmony with surroundings, reaching creation's first cause, swaying all things and swayed by none. How then should such troubles come? This was the method of Shen Nung and Huang Ti. But amidst the mundane passions and relationships of man, such would not be the case. For where there is union, there is also separation. Where there is completion, there is also destruction. Where there is purity, there is also oppression. Where there is honor, there is also disparagement. Where there is doing, there is also undoing. Where there is openness, there is also underhandedness. And where there is no semblance, there is also deceit. How then can there be any fixed point? Alas, indeed, take note, my disciples, that such is to be found only in the domain of Tao. Yi Liao of Shinan paid a visit to the Prince of Lu. The latter wore a melancholy look, whereupon the philosopher of Shinan inquired what was the cause. "I study the doctrines of the ancient sages," replied the prince. "I carry on the work of my predecessors. I respect religion, I honor the good. Never for a moment do I relax on these points, yet I cannot avoid misfortune, and consequently I am sad." "Your Highness' method of avoiding misfortune," said the philosopher of Shinan, "is but a shallow one. A handsome fox or a stripped leopard will live in a mountain forest, hiding beneath some precipitous cliff. This is their repose. They come out at night and keep in by day. This is their caution. Though under the stress of hunger and thirst, they lie hidden, hardly venturing to slink secretly to a river bank in search of food. This is their resoluteness. Nevertheless, they do not escape the misfortune of the net and the trap. But what crime have they committed? 'Tis their skin which is the cause of their trouble, and is not the state of Lu your Highness' skin? I would have your Highness put away body and skin alike, and cleansing your heart and purging it of passion, betake yourself to the land where mortality is not. In Nan Yue there is a district called Established Virtue. Its people are simple and honest, unselfish and without passions. They can make, but cannot keep. They give, but look for no return. They are not conscious of fulfilling obligations. They are not conscious of subservience to etiquette. Their actions are altogether uncontrolled, yet they treat in the way of the wise. Life is for enjoyment, death for burial, and thither I would have your Highness proceed, power discarded, and the world left behind only putting trust in Tao." "The road is long and dangerous," said the prince. "Rivers and hills to be crossed, and I without boat or chariot, what then?" "Unhindered by body and unfettered in mind," replied the philosopher, "your Highness will be a chariot to yourself." "But the road is long and dreary," argued the prince, "and uninhabited. I shall have no one to turn to for help, and how without food shall I ever be able to get there?" "Decrease expenditure, and lessen desires," answered the philosopher. and even though with provisions there will be enough. And when through river and over sea your highness will travel into shoreless, illimitable space, from the borderland those who act as escort will return, but thence onwards your highness will travel afar. It is the human in ourselves which is our hindrance, and the human in others which causes our sorrow. The great Yao had not this human element himself, nor did he perceive it in others. And I would have your highness put off this hindrance and rid yourself of this sorrow, and roam with Tao alone through the realms of infinite naught. Suppose a boat is crossing a river, and another empty boat is about to collide with it. Even an irritable man would not lose his temper. But supposing there was someone in the second boat, then the occupant of the first would shout to him to keep clear. And if the other did not hear the first time, nor even when called to 3 times, bad language would inevitably follow. In the first case there was no anger. In the second there was, because in the first case the boat was empty, and in the second it was occupied. And so it is with man. If he could only roam empty through life, who would be able to injure him? Pei Kung-she, minister to Duke Ling of Wei, levied contributions for making bells. An altar was built outside the city gate, and in 3 months the bells, upper and lower, were all hung. When Wang Tzu Xing Shi saw them, he asked, saying, "How, sir, did you manage this?" "In the domain of one," replied Shi. "There may not be managing. I have heard say that which is carved and polished reverts nevertheless to its natural condition, and so I made allowances for ignorance and for suspicion. I betrayed no feeling when welcomed or dismissed. I forbade not those who came, nor detained those who went away. I showed no resentment towards the unwilling, nor gratitude towards those who gave. Every one subscribed what he liked, and thus in my daily collection of subscriptions no injury was done. How much more than those who have a great way?" When Confucius was hemmed in between Chen and Tsai, he passed 7 days without food. The minister Chen went to condole with him and said, "You were near, sir, to death." "I was indeed," replied Confucius. "Do you fear death, sir?" inquired Chen. "I do," said Confucius. "Then I will try to teach you," said Chen, "the way not to die. In the Eastern Sea there are certain birds called the Iyer. They behave themselves in a modest and unassuming manner as though unpossessed of ability. They fly simultaneously. They roost in a body. In advancing, none strives to be first. In retreating, none ventures to be last. In eating, none will be the first to begin. It is considered proper to take the leavings of others. Wherefore, in their own ranks, they are at peace, and the outside world is unable to harm them, and thus they escape trouble. Straight trees are the first felled. Sweet wells are soonest exhausted, and you make a show of your knowledge in order to startle fools. You cultivate yourself in contrast to the degradation of others, and you blaze along as though the sun and moon were under your arms. Consequently, you cannot avoid trouble. Formerly, I heard a very wise man say, "Self-praise is no recommendation. In merit achieved there is deterioration. In fame achieved there is loss. Who can discard both merit and fame and become one with the rest?" Tao pervaded all things, but is not seen. Te moves through all things, but its place is not known. In its purity and constancy, it may be compared with the purposeless. Remaining concealed, rejected power, it works not for merit nor for fame. Thus not censoring others, it is not censored by others. And if a perfect man cares not for fame, why, sir, should you take pleasure in it? "Good indeed," replied Confucius, and forthwith he took leave of his friends and dismissed his disciples, and retired to the wilds, where he dressed himself in things and searched and fed on acorns and chestnuts. He passed among the beasts and birds, and they took no heed of him, and if so, how much more among men? Confucius asked Tzu Sang-hu, saying, "I have been twice expelled from Lu. My tree was cut down in Song. I have been tabooed in Wei. I am a failure in Shang and Chou. I was surrounded between Shen and Tsai, and in addition to all these troubles, my friends have separated from me and my disciples are gone. How is this?" "Have you not heard," replied Sang-hu, "how when the men of Kur fled, one of them, named Lin Hui, cast aside the most valuable regalia, and carried away his child upon his back. Someone suggested that he was influenced by the value of a child, but the child's value was small, or by the inconvenience of the regalia, but the inconvenience of a child would be much greater. Why then did he leave behind the regalia and carry off a child? Lin Hui himself said, the regalia involved a mere question of money. The child was from God. And so it is that in trouble and calamity, mere money questions are neglected, while we ever cling nearer to that which is from God. And between neglecting and clinging to, the difference is great. The friendship of a superior man is negative like water. The friendship of a mean man is full-flavored like wine. That of a superior man passes from the negative to the affectionate. That of a mean man passes from the full flavor to nothing. The friendship of a mean man begins without due cause, and in like manner comes to an end. I hear and obey, replied Confucius, and forthwith he went quietly home, put an end to his studies, and cast aside his books. His disciples no longer saluted him as teacher, but his love for them deepened every day. On another occasion, Sang Hu said to him again, when Shan was about to die, he commanded the great Yu as follows. Be careful, act in accordance with your physical body, speak in accordance with your feelings. You will thus not get into difficulty with the former, nor suffer annoyance in the latter. And as under these conditions you will not stand in need of outward embellishment of any kind, it follows that you therefore will not stand in need of anything. Chuang Tzu put on cotton clothes with patches in them, and arranging his girdle and tying on his shoes, went to see the Prince of Wei. How miserable you look, sir, cried the prince. It is poverty, not misery, replied Chuang Tzu. A man who has Tao cannot be miserable. Ragged clothes and old boots make poverty, not misery. Mine is what is called being out of harmony with one's age. Has your highness never seen a climbing ape? Give it some large tree, and it will twist and twirl among the branches as the monarch of all it surveys. Ye and Feng Meng can never catch a glimpse of it. But put it in a bramble bush, and it will move odiously with sidelong glances, trembling all over with fear, not that its muscles reflex in the face of difficulty, but because it is at a disadvantage as regards position, and is unable to make use of its skill. And how should anyone living under foolish sovereigns and wicked ministers help being miserable, even though he might wish not to be so? It was under such circumstances that Pekan was disemboweled. When Confucius was hemmed in between Chen and Tsai and had gone 7 days without food, then holding in his left hand a piece of dry wood and in his right hand a dry stick, he sang a ballad of Piao Shi. He had an instrument, but the djemmet was wanting. There was sound, but no tune. The sound of the wood, accompanied by the voice of a man, yielded a harsh result, but it was in keeping with the feelings of his audience. Yen Hui, who was standing by in a respectful attitude, thereupon began to turn his eyes about him, and Confucius, fearing lest he should be driven by exulting into bragging, or by a desire for safety into sorrow, spoke to him as follows. Hui, it is easy to escape injury from God. It is difficult to avoid the benefits of man. There is no beginning and there is no end. Man and God are one. Who then was singing just now? Pray, sir, what do you mean? Asked Yen Hui, by saying that it is easy to escape injury from God. Hunger, thirst, cold, and heat, replied Confucius, are but as fetters in the path of life. They belong to the natural laws which govern the universe, and in obedience thereto I pass on my allotted course. The subject dares not disregard the mandates of his prince, and if this is man's duty to man, how much more shall it be his duty to God? What is the meaning of difficult to avoid the benefits of man? Asked Yen Hui. If one begins, replied Confucius, by adaptation to surroundings, rank and power follow with keys. Such advantages are external. They are not derived from oneself, and my life is more or less dependent upon the external. The superior man does not steal these, nor does the good man pilfer them. What then do I but take them as they come? Wherefore it has been said that no bird is so wise as the swallow. If it sees a place unfit to dwell in, it will not bestow a glance thereon. and even though it should drop food there, it will leave the food and fly away. No swallows fear man, yet they dwell among men, because there they find their natural abode. And what is the meaning, inquired Yen Hui, of no beginning and no end? The work goes on, replied Confucius, and no man knoweth the cause. How then should he know the end or the beginning? There's nothing left to us but to wait. And that man and God are one? Said Yen Hui. What does that mean? The man is, replied Confucius, is from God. That God is also from God. That man is not God is his nature. The sage quietly waits for death as the end. When Chuang Tzu was wandering in the park of Tiaoling, he saw a strange bird which came from the south. Its wings were 7 feet across, its eyes were an inch in circumference, and it flew close past Chuang Tzu's head to alight in a chestnut grove. What manner of bird is this? Cried Chuang Tzu. With strong wings it does not fly away, with large eyes it does not see. So he picked up his skirts and strode towards it with his crossbow, anxious to get a shot. Just then he saw a cicade enjoying itself in the shade, forgetful of all else, and he saw a mantis spring and seize it, forgetting in the act its own body, which the strange bird immediately pounced upon and made its prey. And this it was which had caused the bird to forget its own nature. Alas, cried Chuang Tzu with a sigh, how creatures injure one another! Loss follows the pursuit of gain. So he laid aside his bow and went home, driven away by the park keeper, who wanted to know what business he had there. For 3 months after this, Chuang Tzu did not leave the house, and at length in Lin Chu asking him, saying, Master, how is it that you haven't been out for so long? While keeping my physical frame, replied Chuang Tzu, I lost sight of my real self. Gazing at muddy water, I lost sight of a clear abyss. Besides, I have learned from the master as follows. When you go into the world, follow its customs. Now when I strolled into the park at Tiaoling, I forgot my real self. That strange bird which flew close past me to the chestnut grove forgot its nature. The keeper of a chestnut grove took me for a thief. Consequently, I have not been out. When Yang Tzu went to the Sung state, he passed the night at an inn. The innkeeper had 2 concubines, one beautiful, the other ugly. The latter he loved, the former he hated. Yang Tzu asked how this was. Whereupon one of the inn servants said, The beautiful one is so conscious of her beauty that one does not think her beautiful. The ugly one is so conscious of her ugliness that one does not think her ugly. Note this, my disciples, cried Yang Tzu. Be virtuous, but without being consciously so, and wherever you go, you will be beloved.